Patrick Cook. I'm just going to treat this session as a little bit of kind of a regrouping. Let's take a few minutes here and relax a bit, kind of clean up our environment, talk about what we've learned in the last couple sessions, just kind of hang out and uh, just kind of enjoy talking with one another. Let me clean up a little bit here. I am going to open up where we left off, right there, and recalculate. Okay. And I'll fire up the navigator, pull that over. So kind of adjust this a little bit here so I can kind of see. So we're kind of back on track here in terms of our work. And we've actually come quite a ways here. We've been talking about this lighting panel, and we know now that we got 6 different lighting sources. Those sources can be global, they can be positional, spotlight, or they could be a light map. And we talked about the object coloring, the coloring of the object itself, the diffuse coloring, diffuse lighting. We talked about the ambient, and we talked about the dynamic fog, and we just recently were done talking about the background image. You can do some interesting artistic stuff with that background image, but it's got its rough edges too. All right. And and down here we talked about how we can actually save our lighting and coloring, or reopen it again. All right. And of course, we've got all of our save and open capabilities over on the main panel. Now, so we've come a long way here. We've come a long way. And so I guess the next question is, where do we go from here? I think what we should be doing is returning to our project, and try to utilize some of the lighting and the coloring capabilities that we've been talking about the last dozen or so sessions. And the idea is to try to move our project forward, because we still want to get to a point where we construct the keyframes so that we can get to a point where we can render our animation and move this to a point where we have a publishable animation. So I think then a good place to resume would be to return our attention back to advancing the development of our Mandelbulb 3D animation. Now, along those lines, where I left this before we got off talking about this whole lighting panel, I was working on lighting. I wasn't too interested in coloring. Like I've talked about before, I always do the graphic first, then I do the lighting, then I do the coloring, and then that's when I'll go to a still for high resolution, or I'll go for an animation to build the keyframes. So I'm sort of in the phase of coloring because I've pretty much landed on the graphic I want. I pretty much have done the lighting, and now it's really the coloring. So, but let's take a few minutes and do coloring then, okay? Now, all right, so my lighting panel, I've got my light source here. I'm good with this. I'm good with the overall light source. The object, the diffuse, the diffuse color. Come on, get on down here. Come on. we're very neutral. We're very neutral. Uh, and I think I want to correct that. I don't want a I don't want to I don't want to I don't want a blazing color uh, kaleidoscope, but I do want something that uses color to make the scene interesting. All right, now, so let's do this. Just as a starter, I'm going to I'm going to keep this on 0.5 and I'm going to hit random. All right, and I'm going to hit random again. I don't like any of these. I'm going to do 0.1 so that this, what do they call it? They call it a random multiplier is calmed down. 0.1. 0.1. Okay. Okay. All right. I think we can work with that. So all I did here is I used that random just to kind of lay something out there, just to kind of get me started. But I don't know if I want that kind of an environment. But let me modify it. So we see here by this color bar, I see a green. I see the green. Over here, I'm kind of a gray, but I'm a little gray bluish up here. So I don't really want this green. So I'm going to right-click my mouse on that. What would be interesting for the foreground? Now I'm working on the foreground. Let's do a kind of a light gray. All right. All right, I'm going to come over here. Now, I'm going to do something with the... All right, now here's a little trick that I do. If I don't really know where the colors are pertaining to the z-axis, what I'll do is I'll pick a red. All right. Now, because I picked red, it shows me here in a gaudy sort of way where all that coloring is. But let's say I want that to be, right click. Let's make it a soft yellow. I'm sorry, orange. Let's make it a very soft orange. There we go. Well, no, that's interesting. That's almost believable. I'm going to do my other trick here. I'm going to come down to this color bar, right click on it. I'm going to pick red. I want to know where that is. And that's interesting because this red doesn't even really show up. And I know why. That is related to the color variation on Z setting. You see, if I start tweaking that, look what I do. All right, I just forced my red here into the foreground. Now you notice here my orange really doesn't much exist. It's there, but it's not really much because I had modified this particular control right here. All right. If I get that right there, right on, see that little little V or U? If I get it right on there, I get something like this. A little hard to dial that in. All right, but here, let's get my orange back in here. Now, why don't I take this and slide it? All right, now, so what I've done is I've taken this color bar or this red band and I have pulled it from way off in the background to the point where it doesn't, it's out of the range. And I have pulled it so that it's more forward in the scene. So now I know where my red is. I know where this color band is relative to the z-axis of the Mandelbulb. Now what I can do is go change it. I don't know. Let's make it, here, let's make it a brick color. That's not going to work. Anyway, okay. All right. But you see how I played with the color Z orientation to kind of get a scene which might be quite interesting. It's still a little garish. I'm going to right click on that. I'm going to lighten this whole thing up. I'm going to kind of go to a little pink. Looks like Candyland. I'm going to go more towards the white. I'm going to click it again. A little bit more towards the pink. Yeah, almost. I don't like it. But this is how you do it. You play with this color. You choose colors. You work with the color variation on the z-axis until you get to a point where it's something that you like. And when you get to something you like, slow down, save, nothing dramatic, because you want to tweak it in. You don't want to get crazy. All right, you want to kind of play with the shadows. Get down here and get the shadows worked in. You know, tweak this out. Here's the ambient intensity. All right, tweak it out. Get over to your dynamic fog. Increase the fog. Increase the density of the fog. Work with your far offset, your fog offset. Work with the far offset. You see? All right. Come up here and maybe make the fog white. Nah. Make the fog maybe yellow. Nah. Make the fog what I had. Okay. Orange. I don't know. Kind of simulate. Make it neutral. How about we do neutral? Increase the intensity of the fog. There we go. You know, it's just a matter of kind of tweaking it in to where you get a scene that you like. And that's the key to this whole thing. You have to like it. All right, I'll see you in the next session.